Hello, everybody. Welcome to a special edition of the Comics Nuts and Bolts. My name is Luke Stone. I'm your host today. Your host every day, almost. But today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. So as we wait for people to start showing up into the chat, into the stream here, we're going to be taking requests, like questions, like people have some kind of a question you need some answering or things like that. We are going to take each question and we're going to answer them that way today. We're also going to open up the chat to where people can come in and ask their question live on the air. Or if we have anyone out there that's watching today that might want to join in and help answer some of the questions, we're going to do that. So we're going to do this a little bit more like what you would find at kind of like a panel at a con, or like kind of a meet and greet at a con, where we're going to be able to kind of walk around a table or kind of meet some people and do that kind of thing. So that's what we're going to be doing today. Just going to throw up a quick ticker banner here real fast. Question and the comments. So feel free to start commenting so that we can get going with some questions. All right. I do have some kind of like pre-established questions that we're going to work with today. And let me just throw this invite into the comments, and so you'll be able to find that, and you can just follow this right there. Okay, so that's in there, and actually it looks like it is on the YouTube channel only. Doesn't look like it's posting to Facebook. So let me go ahead and throw that over here on the Facebook real fast. So the first question that we had come up was about printing, and so we are going to talk some nuts and bolts about finding a printer, which printer is going to be best for you. And, you know, it's not a one size fits all kind of scenario with printing either. I think that, you know, finding a printer is a little bit like buying a cup of coffee. A lot of people make coffee. Some people specialize in it. And the best coffee is not always the place that says they're the best at doing it. So we're going to look at a couple of different printing options for you and why you might need a particular printer. Syndicate says, howdy. It is very nice to see you this afternoon. I almost said this morning. I normally do the show around 4 o'clock on a Monday, and so we're doing it at 7 o'clock on a Friday. So it's a little bit different for me, but we are you know, it's a nice Friday here in Florida, here in Jacksonville. But I'm going to go ahead and go to this feed over here real quick. You just have to bear with me, folks. But I am. Tim, let me go ahead and share that out there for you. Tim is telling you to go to Indiegogo.com projects Melvin. So he's got something going on Indiegogo right now. So thanks, Tim, for sharing that out today. Bill McCormick says, I happen to love my printer, but I'm fascinated by this. Okay, well, Timothy, what's up? Not much, man. We are going to be talking about printers and then any other questions that you might have, comics related. So anything that you might have a question about when it comes to the nuts and bolts of doing a comic. Maybe it can be like something that maybe you haven't heard anyone talk about. It's something that you've run into, or some best practice that you're trying to figure out for yourself. I'm going to go through that, and we're also going to open that up to where other people can come in and make those comments as well. So let me just get in here real fast. I want to make sure that the link goes out here on the Facebook just so that everyone has it. So I'm going to throw that link out there a few places so that you can have access to it. And then we're going to get right into this. Okay. All right. Well, boy, if I could find my own live stream, right? How crazy is that? So I do most of this stuff on, YouTube now. Not that, in case the fairies are listening, not that Facebook is bad, but it's just not as good. when it comes to doing video and live stream and things like that. It actually works better for why is this the way that it is? All right, well, we're going to put that out there. So here, I'll make sure that gets in one more time. All right. So if you are wanting the link, please go over to the YouTube. The YouTube is going to be YouTube/C/Luke Stone Studios, and you can get in there. So let's go ahead and get talking about printers. So Maxim.com. All right, we'll get into that here in just a second. So let me get started with printers real fast. Printers is not a one-size-fits-all thing. So let's say, for instance, you are wanting to start out and you don't want to do like big, massive print runs. And so you might look at the different kind of printer based on cost for that. I think the number one thing that I look at with printers, first off, is what is that I'm going to do? So depending on the kind of book that you're going to print, it's going to kind of steer you towards a different kind of printer. And I'm going to bring up a few different printers online so that you can see them. I'll share my screen. So what I like to do is determine what is my my product going to be. So in most cases, I will produce one of these. Like this is just like what I call just a standard floppy. And so this is what you're going to find on a comic book shelf is just like, just kind of standard floppy. In other cases, there are some books that have a thicker cover, foil covers. I actually picked up something at the comic book shop the other day, and I'll just show this. I haven't read it yet, so I'm not really plugging them or anything, but we'll see here. But this Wayward Sons by Absolute Comics Group. Don't know if you can tell. They've got kind of a shimmery, shiny thing going on with their text there. And so that's kind of a different kind of project or product. And then some people, they're gonna do shorter books like 20 to 24 pages. Some are going to be 32, some 40. Then you start getting into larger books, that would be more trade paperbacks. And so the first thing you have to do is determine what you want to do, like what you want your product to look like. I'll use Michael Oden for an example. And so for example, his first book that he came out, Michael, if you're watching, shout outs. His first book he wanted to have a nice foil cover on it. And so he had to find a printer that would be able to do that and do a good job at it with the price, and then be able to ship the way get it to him the way he needed to. And so basically you find out what kind of product you're trying to produce. So look at that. And then you got to look at a couple different things. What do you want your price point to be? Because obviously you've got to be able to make some profit off of that. And so you throw in, you start doing the math and figuring that out. Local printers usually can't do it as cheap as people that are kind of set up to do that. Like a couple different places that'll bring up that are actually set up to do comic printing. And then there are, give me 2 seconds here. And so there are places that are actually set up to do those kind of things, and they do a really good job of like printing comics specifically. I tried to get my local printer to do the comics for me, but they just couldn't get the prices where they needed to be. So if you want to try to use someone local, you have more hands-on ability to, kind of deal with those things, like how the books look, the paper weights, and all of that kind of stuff. But my suggestion is maybe go towards someone that's more geared towards making comics. And there's a lot of places that are out there towards doing them on demand. But then you also have to look at the end result, the look and feel. Do you want to do newsprint on your comics? Do you want to do all those kind of things? So you have to answer a ton of questions when looking at what's up, Danny? Awesome, man. But yeah, so you have to look at a ton of questions when it comes to actually doing when you're really like actually doing your printing. So there's tons of things that you look at. And let me just get you on screen 3. Is that it? No. Screen 2? No, it is screen 3. There it is. Yep. All right. So let me get you over here. And I want to share this. And so we're going to go through. Look at that. I'm on Facebook. All right. So you can see kind of my stuff here. Look at that. I'm on Facebook. Oop. All right. So let's go to one of my favorite printers is this place called Comic Impressions. All right. And so I'll just use them as kind of like the kind of a starting point. Bill, you know what? The question here is, will they print boobs? And I don't know any printer that has a problem with that. You might check before you send the work in, but they may or may not have a problem with that. Gary says, good afternoon. Hey, good afternoon, Gary. So yeah, so what I've got up here is comic impressions. So here's an option for you for for getting comics printed. And this is one of the many choices that's out there. There's also a group called, if we go to Google, you can literally just Google this. So comic book printing. And if you see this, we come up with 46 million different results. And a lot of these, and I will be really honest with you, I have used some of these, but I'm going to suggest that you stay away from a lot of these sponsored ads up here. Now, the Greco printing, I think that's Comics Wellsprings or something now. They do pretty good. Print Ninja does like large runs. And so this is the reason why I said you got to kind of figure out what you want and then start to ask some questions around what the printing is going to be. So for the most part, if it's a floppy, I suggest going to this place called Comic Impressions, and because their pricing is on point. The good thing about their pricing is they have a $50 setup fee for all of their books. And as you can see here, these are kind of the basic covers, like the basic kind of page counts. Now, interior pages and exterior covers, obviously, you count those different. There's been some debate on that. But one of the things that you keep in mind, whenever you're talking about a comic, you're going to talk about either a self cover or you're going to talk about a plus cover. Okay, so the self cover means the exact same paper is being used for the interior as the exterior. So it's like, let's say it's 70-pound gloss text all the way through. And so that's a self cover. And typically that's how larger runs of comics are made when it comes to like these big print runs, like the a couple thousands. When you start getting to the larger print runs, that's how they're done. They're made as a typical floppy. And so they actually got pricing broke down between that and then the plus cover. The plus cover is those where you start adding in the more special covers, the thicker, glossier stock, maybe even like different things like that. And so here their pricing is really done well. So on a typical, let's just say 24 page, which means that's got 4 pages of cover, 20 pages of story on the inside. So 24 page self cover. That right there, you start looking at prices of like $1.90 in some cases, when you can get up to 100. So when you get up to 100, it's like $1.94 a piece. It gets a little cheaper because they have a $50 setup fee, but basically that allows you to start marking those, to get a good quality book. And they do this for a living. Like, this is what they do. You take a look at this stuff, you can actually think they show off their equipment here. They go to our process. And so they do a really good job. I know they've done work for a lot of the people that are in the indie comics. Oh, it's just text now. But they did have pictures and stuff of their work, of kind of their machinery and stuff. But it looks like they don't have that stuff anymore. So, or maybe I just got it in an email or something. I'm not sure, but it was all really kind of cool stuff. But it goes through here and shows what they can do. So they do comic books, graphic novels, trade paperbacks, hard covers, variant covers, art prints. And so they're able to do kind of a lot of different things. They can do trading cards, business cards, and it's nice to kind of get that kind of one-stop shop. So they're one that I like to go to. Another one I like to go to, I actually just saw it pop up here. Gary Henderson says page by page printing. Yes, page by page is very nice. And so let's go to their Facebook. So you can see some of these guys just have like Facebook businesses. And so we'll go to page by page first. And look, they come up pretty quick because I've used them before. So page by page, it's the dude is a great guy, but his pricing is also very competitive. But he is not a it's not like a giant operation. So this guy's like one dude with a machine, but he does good work. He gets it out to you. But sometimes there's kind of a wait queue. Whereas with like Comic Impressions, it's not, and it's usually they've got a pretty big operation, so you can get things done, turned around pretty quickly. So that's something to look at too. What's your wait time? How long do you need to get that printed? And so this is a company that I use a lot. Another one that I like to use is this place called Digital Print Universe, and Aaron Kane is an amazing guy, and he does a lot of. They do a lot of comics, and they're priced competitively, in some cases cheaper than actually Comic Impressions, but they are also part of a larger organization that this kind of wing of digital print. They're like a Mar print company. And this Digital Print Universe is their kind of their comics wing. And so Aaron runs that. And so you can see there's a lot of really cool things there. They also do foil and metal covers and things like that. So if you're wanting special covers, Digital Print Universe can help you out. You get something really cool and neat in your hand. So I would suggest doing that. So I'm not real sure. I have not really quoted anything with Comic Impressions when it comes to the special covers or anything like that. Then somebody else that has done some special covers, and I've actually sent some people to, is Hero and Villain Designs. Hero and Villain Designs, they do any special cover or foil cover that you've seen come out from me has been through this company right here. And so they do kind of different paper stocks and different kind of foils and different designs. Oh, looky there. There you go. There's some, didn't even see that was out there. Actually, I'm going to love that. There we go. So yeah, some hybrid stuff there. So the special covers, foil covers came in through them. They have a lot of really cool packages and really good deals. This guy also works really well with the creators. So that's another thing that you want to look at is, so kind of check that stuff out too. So it kind of, but he's, again, a smaller operation, not like some of these bigger ones, but he does a lot of really good work too. So let's kind of get into some of your suggestions. I hear Maxim. So let's get into these comments here. Timothy says, some normally want you to change your format, and most of the time I don't have the format they want. And that's true, Timothy, but the guys that I'm specifically telling you to go to, Comic Impressions, Digital Print Universe, Hero and Villains, they will actually help with your setup as well. Like they will help get your formatting right, and they're really easy to work with. And that way, the next time you work with them, you don't have to do that stuff again. And he also says Maxim is the one I've been looking at, and they show you when the finished copies will arrive to you. Honestly, a lot of people will do that. So let's just go ahead and check out Maxim, just because we're talking about that. I got to make sure I don't type the magazine in. Mixam. Okay. And so there's going to be a lot of these short run print companies. There used to be a lot fewer options than what there are today. Originally, it was just a little place here in Florida called Kablam did it. And now, so you've got Comics Wellspring. This is Comics Wellspring, basically. They do a pretty good job. I know that Varian Grant uses them. gotten a couple of books that have some of their stuff in there, and so they do a pretty decent job. Oh, that was the Greco. And here's the mixem.com. I have not used them, so I can't talk to their quality. So I have used a few places, and there's some quality issues, and I don't know if I've got. I don't want to pop off camera. It just that feels unprofessional to me. But I did have some comics laying around that were from a different company, and they weren't very good. The quality was pretty low. So you need to be really careful. Like the price might be low, like might be right, and they might be able to say they're going to deliver on time. But really the question is, what are they going to deliver? Because at the end of the day, it's a matter of getting the product in the hands of the customer. And if the customer looks at it and doesn't think it's very good, then they're not going to want to buy it, or they're not going to want to come back and buy again. Especially if you're doing fulfillment through like Indiegogo, or you're doing fulfillment through Kickstarter, where the customer doesn't get to see that product first. So printing, you kind of got to look through some of these places, make sure you get the right quality. So when it comes to a place like this, magazines, so let's go to their comic book link. Comic books is one of those things where people think they can do. Again, it's like buying coffee. You know, you can get a cup of coffee anywhere. And some people might say, oh yeah, we have the world's best cup of coffee, but it's really not very good at all. And so some people do coffee really well. Some people do coffee really poorly. And I will tell you, for 100 copies in US standard size, full color, portrait, paper type is satin. You're going to want gloss. And then you're going to want, that's only 8 pages. You're going to want 24 basic. You start looking at $251. That's really expensive on a 70-pound text gloss. That is really expensive. That's $2.51 a book. And that's including the shipping. So that means at that price, so basically here's how you figure out your pricing with a book. You need to kind of double whatever the cost of your printing is going to be. Otherwise, you're not going to make any money off of it. Because when you start to offer discounts to stores and things like that, you've got to be able to make a living at this. A lot of us that are making comics, we're not the big two. So we really can't compete with the price of the big two. When we start sticking $3.99 on a book that's costing us, $2.50 to make, yeah, you're making a little bit of money, but you can't discount that. And man, every sale is going to matter on that one. It's going to be really hard to try to comp a book to someone for a review or something that's going to cost you $2.50 to make. And so you've really got to kind of think in those terms too. So with that $2.50, you'd have to sell that for at least $5. And then if you wanted to offer a discount, you probably need, for 24-page book, you're going to need to pop in more money. When you start getting into the 32-page books with this company, so let's go with the 32 side. And then that's not even adding the cover. Hold on. Let's add the cover. Let's figure that out. So that would be 28 with cover. We're going to do gloss. We're going to go ahead and they only do covers in 80-pound cover. So the covers are separate from them. So I guess you could do the self cover by doing it the other way around. But when you start adding in a nice cover, the price starts going up. So I haven't seen their quality. If someone from mixem.com would like to send me a sample of some of their work, and I will talk about it to the people that listen to me, all 9 or 10 of you, I will be happy to kind of review their quality and whether or not their price structure is worth, what, if you're getting value for the price there. But what happens is a lot of times is these guys just can't really spend the money on that or give you the right price. They can't, how do I put that? They can't do the work at a low enough price so that you can actually make some money off of it. So Pop says, you're live in the madness of my mind live in the madness, my friend. Awesome. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate that. Then Geek Insider, hello, Luke Stone. Thank you for being part of the Indie Vent. Woo, woo. Yes, Indie Vent is really cool. So we were supposed to, most of us were supposed to be at Tampa Bay Comic-Con this weekend. And we wanted to sell some of our comics and hang out with some, I was going to be able to hang out with some of the Terraform people and we're really looking forward to it. And then COVID, the Rona got to us, and so we weren't able to do that. And so it's really unfortunate. But Meredith Logren and Rob Anderson decided they were going to put on this indie event. And so basically everyone's got shows during the same hours as the Tampa Bay Comic-Con would have been. And so we're kind of just going over some of those things. And it's really awesome. So let's get to more questions or more comments here. So would it be experiment with finding the right one? You know what, Timothy? Yeah, it is an experiment. And so here's what I did. And I will be really honest with you. I worked with Page by Page that we just looked at just a second ago. So I worked with probably back in 2015, 2016. Let's just go back to his so that since we are promoting, we're talking about him. Why would it do that? There we go. I worked with this guy tirelessly, and I'm going to pull up kind of the big picture of his pricing. So I worked with this guy for probably 2-3 weeks on a book. We printed it on 3 or 4 different paper stocks. We did it with different covers. We did it with different textures. We did all of that stuff to kind of figure out what we really wanted for the book and what all of the kind of the standard Tenacious Comics books were going to look like. And so we wound up coming up with I think it was a 70-pound gloss text for the cover and a 55-pound text for the interior for those books. And they looked great and they were amazing. And then when we started moving and doing things with Starcross Comics, we started looking at new printers because they used a comics something. I'm not really going to say who they use because I wasn't real happy with the quality that was coming out of there. I would get books shipped to me all the time that were damaged or kind of not printed well. And we decided it was time to start looking somewhere else. And that's when we actually found Comics Impressions and Digital Print Universe. So when we moved in to them, and we were using Page by Page as kind of the backup because we needed to be able to get books out a little bit faster. And sometimes things would get put in the queue with Page by Page and it would take a little longer to get. So Page by Page is our backup. He does great work, but he actually helped with the trial and error of what we wanted the look and the feel and the quality of the books to be. So that helped out tremendously when we started working with him. And so when we moved over to the Comic Impressions, we knew when and here's the thing, if you ask Comic Impressions to send you a sampler, they will give you a sample pack that actually has a whole bunch of paperweights printed so you can feel them, and they'll give you some sample books. And so I got a lot of sample books and stuff through them. If you are on the fence about looking at quality of stuff, definitely get a hold of them and check out their work because they do really, really good stuff. But that helped me know that, like, okay, so now that one of my problems was 55-pound text was getting very difficult to use with all the new printers, and because it was coming out, it would not set up it wouldn't come out through the machines right, and so it would mess up the printing. And so they were using heavier weights, and so that's when I worked with Comic Impressions, and we decided that we wanted to do a 70-pound gloss all the way through. So we just 70-pound gloss all the way through self-cover. And so it was trial and error, Tim. It was, very much going through, getting a book printed, getting single book printed, seeing what it looked like, seeing how it felt. Still to this day, even when it comes to some of the special covers, like I would do that too. I would get a couple printed here or there and just see what they look like and feel like. Spent a lot of money on that kind of stuff, but it kind of settled us down into kind of where we want to be. And actually, here's what's really cool. On this, you could see this Astral book that is being featured here on Comics Impressions for the hardcovers and variant covers. That dude lives in Jacksonville, and that book I've got both of those books, and that dude is amazing. And the book is really good, and so you should definitely check that out. I'm just looking at that, so you should check that out. Some really good people use Comic Impressions. I believe Scout uses them as well. Terraform Comics uses them. Pardon me. So a few people use them, but yeah, it is definitely a trial and error thing. So let's get over here to Phil Leon says Greco Printing and Imaging has great comics printing options, great customer service, and quick. I have heard that. Varian lives very close to Comics Wellspring, and so they do that. Now let's actually just kind of go to their because I haven't used them, but I've heard a lot of people that have. And so again, it all comes down to kind of that pricing model, right? So I'm always trying to find that price where I can sell the books at a really reasonable price, which means I have to print them at a very reasonable price. So stitch binding. So we're going to do here. Let's do, so that's standard covers. Let's do self cover, print on the same paper as the interior. So self cover, you can go as low as a 60-pound interior, which is pretty low. Let's go to the 70-pound uncoated. And then let's go 24 interior pages. Let's go with the total of 20 interior pages plus the cover. So we got the 24 pages because it's self-cover. And then we don't want the ad in there because we want to be professional. We want to have our own stuff. And for 25 copies, you're looking at $63. So let's bring that up to 100 copies and see what that looks like for us. And that'll give us an idea. So that's $252. So right there, you're looking at $2.52 a piece. So Phil, yeah, they might print a really good book and they might have great customer service, but that price tag makes it very difficult for you to sell a book if you do want to try to bring it down to if you want to bring it down into that price range, like, you know, like a $3.99 or something like that for a 24-page shelf, for 24 self-cover floppy. So it does get a little more expensive, especially at that range when you start going over here to, I knew I was going to do that. Where's my mouse? There it is. When you get over here into pricing for them again, let's just go back to that 100 page for the 24 self cover. It's at $194. Now there's going to be some shipping in there. And so does Comics Wellspring, is shipping included in that price? I don't think so. So yeah, so you do rush delivery. So printing, I mean, shipping has to be included in that price because that's still part of the cost of the book. So you have to figure that out there too. So Timothy, so you would have to do the lowest amount of copies. In some cases, yeah, to do a test and trial and error, you'd have to do the lowest amount of copies. But here's what I do suggest, Timothy. Many of these places will send you a sample. Say, hey, can you ship me a sample of what you've printed? And most of them will do it. If they don't do it, run away. If they will not ship you a sample, just stay away from them. Comic Impression ships them. Page by Page ships them. Digital Print Universe ships them. I think even Comics Wellsprings will ship you a sample. Most of these places will send you a sample of the work they do. So if they don't do that, kind of stay away from it. Kind of get, don't even worry about that. So this is a good question. What size font shows up better on finished comics? So here is what I've learned. So I actually letter at and have people letter at the larger size, the 11 by 17. Basically, it's like 16 something by like 11 or 10 something, but at that size. And then we use a 10 point, 11 point, or some people use a 15 point font. And I think it's just way too big. I find 10 point font works really well. 11 point font is, if you need a little bigger, works. I try not to go really much bigger than that. And I try not to go any smaller than a 9. I have used a 9 point font on a book that was very wordy and it still turned out okay. So that's a good question. So when you're printing, when you're doing those books, probably, and you've also got to realize that not every font is going to be the same point size as the other font. So it's going to depend on the font that you're using too. But what I would say is I use a go-to, what is that? It's Blambot. Go to blambot.com, and here we just pull blambot.com up real fast so you can take a look at that because that's a lettering question. Blambot.com does that. I think I spelled that right. Yeah, I did. There we go. So they've got all of this stuff that's available for lettering. And so go through there, look at some of their letters. I actually use one that I got there. Like I really like the Mighty Makes Right Pro, and I use one called Evil Genius. The Anime Ace I use on a lot of things as well. And so they use these fonts. And so most of them are going to be like a 10 or an 11 point font is what you're really going to print that at. Phil just said Comics Wellsprings is a division, and we just found that. So very good. Phil says, cool. Thanks for the input. I appreciate it, man. Phil, no problem. That's what we're here for. So I've been doing comics for a number of years, and I've really the whole thing is trial and error. And if I can help some of you guys, miss out on some of the error because of my trial, I'm happy to do that. Absolutely happy to do that. So that's kind of printing. So we find, you find your printer, and it's going to be based on the price you can get it for, how quickly you can get it. The shipping has to be included in that price so that you can figure out like really what you can sell your book for. And then it's going to come down to the relationship you have with the people that are doing the books. So I know some people work with all of these companies and get a better price than what's listed. I know they don't publish that, but they get a better price than what's listed because of the relationship that they've had with them. And so, which is what you want. You want those kind of relationships. All right. Timothy says, this is my first attempt on crowdfunding. Tim, if you have any questions on crowdfunding, let me know. I'm happy to answer any of those questions as well. I've been able to successfully fund and fulfill several campaigns. My most recent was Hybrids 5 for my own series. Shameless plug. Over on Indiegogo, you can go there to Indiegogo.com right now, and you can pick up. I've got a few sets of the variant covers left from the original printing for Starcross, and then I've got one set of the original printing of the original set of covers left from Starcross, and soon they'll be rebranded to Terraform Comics. So, Tim, I encourage you to ask as many questions as you can about crowdfunding and all of those things. Now, here's one thing about crowdfunding, and I will say this. So we talk a lot about the printing, but we have to make, so here we worry, if you're me, you worry like crazy that you're going to make sure that your books are printed well, that they look good. So we worry about the art, we worry about the colors. Sometimes people change the letters, but I do not do that. Focus on lettering. Lettering is super, super important. Any book that I pick up, I'll be honest with you, I picked up a book in the store comic shop this last Wednesday. I read it, hated it. The art was okay. The colors were oversaturated. It was pedestrian, but I really liked the lettering. The letterer did a really, really good job. And so they did a really good job. And yeah, I do want to bring this up that Gary says that Page by Page was offering prints too. Yeah, they do offer prints. And so that's one of the things that I always try to do. If they offer some prints and things that you can get in extra, like little mini posters or even larger posters, that really helps to fill out your con table. Or your if we ever get back to cons. I think we will. I think we'll get back to cons, and hopefully by the end of the year, because I still have 2 scheduled that are not canceled yet. So hopefully those work. But what I was saying is we work so hard and focus so much on the getting the book printed and good and in people's hands, and then we just ship it out in like a bubble envelope. We don't take any care with it. So Timothy, my suggestion is to look into some nice solid mailers. You don't have to go Gemini, but Gemini is like the name brand. It's the easiest one, and it's really not that expensive if you buy them in bulk. You can get them for about 50 cents a piece or less in some cases, depending on how many you buy. But definitely check out the Gemini mailers and a little bit of bubble wrap to send out those books in. You can do, and I've had some success with the really hard, rigid envelopes, like document envelopes, and then putting a do not bin sticker on there. I've done that with some single issues, and it does really well. But when you're doing all of those prints, make sure that you're going to get them out to the people, out to the customers, in good shape. There was a creator that just recently fulfilled, and book showed up tore up, and people talked about it. All right, let's keep going. Had to take a little drink of water there. Marilyn says, hi, Luke. You do that, shameless. Yeah, I do that shameless plug. Again, also make sure to sign up for our mailing list over at terraformcomics.com. We're going to have a lot of really cool books out there, and we are here for the creator. We are here for creator-reader relationship, and so we are changing the landscape of comics, and we are looking forward to helping you do that. There you go. More Meredith, more of it. Gary Henderson's paper page offers prints too. And then Timothy said, can I send you an example page to see if you can read it? Absolutely. Absolutely. Go ahead and you can go right here through Facebook or yeah, you're on Facebook. So you can go right to my profile and just send it to me in Messenger. It will be the easiest way for you instead of writing down an email address or anything. Go ahead and send that to me. And I will take a look at that this evening and let you know if it's legible and if it's something that we can read well. But definitely check out the blambot.com for fonts. Now, here's the thing. Here's where a lot of people they'll use free fonts. And here's the number one thing that I always notice. I can always tell when a free font's been used, and it just looks really, really bad. So you can go in here to fonts. So they got all fonts, design fonts. I like their sound effects fonts. So you can go in here to get these really cool sound effects fonts. And so some of these cost money, some of them are free, but it's going to be worth the money that you put into it because it's stuff that you can use. I bought some of these things, years ago, 5-6 years ago, and I'm still using this stuff to this day. It's not stuff that you're going to have to keep purchasing over and over and over again. Now they also do custom fonts and they do lettering here. So if you need lettering, they will letter your comic book. You go to Hiring Blambot for more info. And so they will do lettering for you. Now here's the thing. A lot of people try to pick up lettering and do it themselves, starting out, especially to save a few bucks. And I can understand that. But there are some places where you can go, some letters that are out there that are about $10 a page. And I know a couple that work for $5 a page, or that will work around your budget. And so, it's great to learn lettering. And since you asked the lettering question, Timothy, I will go ahead and I will add this to the mix. Plask.com. PLASQ.com. And they have tools for just about everyone. So Comic Draw is an app that I use on my iPad, and I have a friend who did all my variant covers for the hybrid series that uses Comics Draw for the iPad to draw his comic books exclusively. And it works a little bit it's like a Photoshop and Clip Studio kind of hybrid. Now I've recently moved over to Clip Studio for everything, and so I've been using that. But I totally recommend Comic Draw, and you can color and add sound effects and add lettering and all that kind of stuff in there as well. Now, if you just need to letter, you can actually go here. So this is a desktop functionality. This is easy, and this basically is for Comic Life is for lettering basically. And so you can download Comic Life and then you could do phones and stuff like that. So they've got really cool, but they really kind of focus on kind of comic writing and building and making kind of stuff. So definitely check that out. If you're looking into getting into lettering and you don't know a whole lot about it, go to Comic Life and you'll be able to letter the comic in there with that software, pretty simple. I haven't worked with that, but it's the same engine that is in the Comic Draw lettering. And so, yeah, it works pretty good. Meredith says that I love fonts. I only get free fonts because budget. Yes, that's true. And Meredith, we can talk about fonts that you don't have to pay for that are really good for comics after this. I have a whole folder of fonts that I can give you. So, and then she also asked, where can I get bubbles or do design them yourself? So there are a couple things. I do design the bubbles myself, but if you're using Clip Studio, they have you have the ability to make bubbles in there. If you're using Comic Draw, it has it in there. Comic Life has it in there. Or you can, it's just so easy to make them though. And I'll kind of defer back to the lettering episode that we did a couple of weeks ago with Steve Cole, to go in and see how we do some of those. And if you guys would like a more in-depth tutorial on how to do lettering, let me know on how to make the bubbles. And I will be happy to show you and teach you that in 2 different pieces of software, maybe 3. That way we can do that. It probably wouldn't be a live setting, but it would probably be, let me know if that's something you want, and I'll make sure that we can get something like that done. Timothy says, cool, give me a link to them. Link to what? You'll have to remind me, because there's kind of a lag. So, and I sometimes move on to different things. So let me know what it is you. So let's get into the next question. So yeah, Timothy, make sure you put in there and let me know what you want a link to, and I will give you a link to them. Phil Leon, did Comic Life ever put a CMYK option yet? You know what? I don't think that it has done a CMYK option yet. But, and that's unfortunate, but some of the printers that I work with can take the RGB and convert it for us, but it does mess with some of the colors when you can't do it yourself. That's why I use Photoshop. Mostly everything I've lettered for the last 5 years has been in Photoshop. I don't suggest Illustrator. It just seems a little clunky, and I don't really like the end result as well as I do with Photoshop, because Photoshop's more of a visual element. Illustrator is really better for kind of like, I know it sounds funny because you're putting together books. It's better for book publishing, but comic books are more kind of the visual element in my opinion. So I just feel like it works better to work with Photoshop. Or I'm getting ready to test out Clip Studio Paint for some lettering. So I'm not really lettering anymore. I'm kind of passing that stuff on to other people. But I am going to check it out just so I have that knowledge and the ability to do that if I need to do a quick page or 2. And then Martin, what's up, man? Nice to see you. It says, I would like a tutorial for Photoshop. So a lettering tutorial for Photoshop, you can confirm that if that's what you like. I'll definitely do that. Kind of show my method and process for doing that, and some quick tips and tricks to do all of the bubbles and lettering and kind of all of that stuff. And be happy to do that. And then Timothy, the letters that you do it for $5 a page. Okay, yeah, you will have to contact me directly, and I will get you in contact with those letterers that are able to do it for that price. Okay. Now, keep in mind, if you're going to ask for these letters that do them for $5 a page, the script is already well edited. There's not a terrible amount of text, so they're not going to have to do like a big book or anything and try to cram a bunch of text inside of the panels with pictures and try to make it all work. It's a pretty easy job for them. So they're able to do it at a lower cost because it doesn't take them very long to do it, because all of the hard homework has already been taken care of. And so keep that in mind when you're looking at pricing a letterer. Phil, I've had my colors screwed by letterers that use the apps like that. Yes, Phil, that's absolutely true. You can easily get your colors messed up, especially if you're working in CMYK. They convert over to RGB and then back. So that software, I bring up software like this for people who are beginning, that are lettering their own books. I don't suggest staying with those. I suggest going into something more professional like Clip Studio or Procreate or Photoshop to do those things. If you're going to letter, that's where you need to get to. So definitely, but this is a good place to start to learn some of those things and to be able to kind of take that step. A lot of these digital printers, though, to be fair, a lot of the digital printers are not working in CMYK. They're able to work in RGB. CMYK really is only mandatory when you're doing offset printing or things like that. And so, and I've even had some say, go ahead and put in RGB for different types of printing. But that always tells me that they're going to be using a digital machine and they're not going to be actually printing out, like doing frame, like doing what do they call those sheets, the big metal printing things. There's a name for it. I forget, And Timothy says, thank you. You're absolutely 100% welcome. I'm more than happy to help out with that kind of stuff. The other question that kind of came in kind of prior to the show, and we'll just talk about that a little bit. It's panel layout. And I'm going to remove this for a little while and get back up here. Phil Leon says Clip Studio is great for letters at a great price point. You know, that's the thing, Phil. I will say that is absolutely 100% true. I recently just am changing from Photoshop to Clip Studio because Photoshop has gotten very expensive, number one. And number two, it's getting to the point to where it's crashing a lot for me. And it does it not just on one computer, but both of my computers. And I started looking into Clip Studio because of a lot of like people out there giving me these suggestions. Hey, check this out. So I picked up Clip Studio, and I've turned out that I can actually draw a lot faster with Clip Studio than what I can with Photoshop. All of the tools are kind of there, and they're all designed really for comic book creators, which is really neat. And the other thing that I learned is that it is ridiculously cheap when in comparison to Photoshop. Like you can buy just the regular software for like $50 or even like, you know, a couple $100. But I did the subscription where you can have the EX for on up to 4 devices for a year. And so that's what I did with that, because now I have the exact same software on my backup laptop, on my main laptop, and on my iPad. You know, so I'll take my iPad with me to draw with my Apple Pencil because I got the iPad Pro, and so I'll use that to draw. And it's seamless from one device to the next, and so it's definitely worth the work there. So, so to get in that question that was brought up kind of prior to the show, put in the comments, was about panel layout. So how do you know what kind of stuff to show in the panel as you're drawing a comic or writing a comic? You know, that's kind of like the $1 million question, I think. Because really that's what determines like the good writers and the good artists from the bad ones, I think, in a way. Here's what's important. When you're starting out a page, and let me see. Maybe I'll share this page. No, I won't share that page. That's for a book that's coming up. I'm not ready to share that yet. Let me just pull something up. All right. I'll just pull up this image and then I will share this. All right, so I'm just pulling this up here. So there are, when you're writing a comic page, you're going to put in panels. And here are some examples of like, and this is the great Jack the King Kirby, his basic panel layouts and stuff that he would do. These are all very, very simple, very traditional, regular panels. They don't, you know, things aren't breaking out of the panels too much. They're not going into weird shapes or things like that. But I would say this, when you're doing a page, and let's say we're just doing one of these 5-panel ones here. I kind of like this big one over here. Can I zoom in on that? I can't zoom in because Pinterest. But what you want to do is you want to start out with a nice establishing shot on the page, and then you want to end with a nice like dynamic shot or something that's going to bring you into the next, you know, kind of the next page, kind of pull you over into that. And so you have to determine in however many panels it is what needs to be seen, how much background, how much character, how much action, and those kind of things. And the best way to determine that is by what the focal point is and what's important. So whenever I go into a new scene, what I do, and I suggest this for everyone that writes a comic, is to go in and that first few panels, really draw the backgrounds and have those things in there. And you've seen how some of the professionals will have no background panels and things like that. Those shots are used to draw focus to the character and away from the background and those elements. Once you've established where you are and kind of the spatial elements, you can get away with no backgrounds in those, because now your focus is in on the characters. And then also you have to think about the text and how much room you're going to have in the text. And so as you're doing that kind of stuff, my suggestion in that is to make sure the focus is the eye is going to be able to follow the focus. of the storytelling, because at the end, it's all about the storytelling. And there's a few elements that work together for that storytelling. There's the sequential art, so the art that's there, and then there's the lettering that's there. And so those two things work together to tell the story. It's not tell me, like some of the older comics, especially with Stan Lee, like they would describe the action that was taking place in the panel. Well, you could see it. You didn't need it to be described. In some cases, it was drawn poorly, so you kind of did need it to be described. But in this industry, it's show, don't tell. So if you can show it and show the action, you're going to do that with the art and the sequential art. So whatever's important to show the story, the part of an element of the story that they need to know, where they're at, their location, their mood, the environment, kind of all of that setting together, establishing those things is important. But once that focus gets off of that and gets onto the character and the action, then the character's faces and expressions might be something that's more part of the storytelling. And so you want to focus in on those faces and do a lot of tight shots. You don't want to do a big background of like, like this big zoomed out thing, unless it really like the whole room or the environment really shows the emotion. Like let's say they're standing beside a gravesite and it's raining, and you want to pull that and show the body language of everyone. And so that would be important to show that whole scene. But in some cases, a real tight shot of the grief on someone's face is way more important than even the background that they're in. Because it's all a matter of the storytelling. And so that's what you do. And you make sure that the visual elements are part of it, but then also the text is part of that storytelling. So you want to make sure that there's plenty of room for that. You want to allow for those bubbles, those text bubbles, to kind of lead you through the story and to help tell the story the way that you want it to be told. Whether someone talks first and then you see their image, or whether it's vice versa, like you see them first and then you see them. Then the text is there, because you want to establish like what the reader sees first. Do they hear them speak first, or do they see them first? And so it's one of those kind of things where you can actually use the comic page to tell the story the way that you want, in a very masterful way. So there's some trial and error. There are people that are really good at it, people that are really bad at it. But here's the best way to know if you're doing it right or not. Do it, like write it out, and then get with an editor or get with some people that do what I call story edit. So there's 3 basic types of editors. We know there's 3 basic types of artists, like people that do layout arts, people that do pencils, and people that do inks, right? So with editing, it's about the same way. There's people that do story editing, which help you like pace the story and flow the story that way. There's people that do project managing, which help you get all of the process together. Like they can do some of that story editing, but they also are there to make sure you're staying on time, that you're meeting deadlines, and that you're getting all of the team members that you need in place to make it successful. And then there's people that we call copy editors that basically go over the last copy of it, make sure that everything is spelled right and everything looks right, and that it's that it's good to go. So those are the 3 kind of editors. So work with one or all 3 of those kind of editors, but definitely when you're starting to panel out those pages, work with a story editor. Story editor is going to be able to help you not miss any opportunities, and so they're gonna really be able to help run that through there. So that's some of my suggestion for that. Let me see what I've missed here. So Phil Leon says, I only use Photoshop for color work. I've kept my old CS 5.5 and still works great. Yeah. So I've heard a lot of people that say they like Photoshop for color work. I think that I like it because I'm familiar with it, but I haven't. And again, I do colors, but I'm not really a colorist kind of thing. I can do all of the process, and I've done all of the process semi-professionally or professionally. And so, but I'm a pencil and inker is what I really am. And so Clip Studio is working great for that, but I don't know what it's going to be like for colors yet because I haven't tested it. I know it's easy to flat. It's easier to flat in Clip Studio than it is to do it in Photoshop. So I will say that flatting is easier there, but I don't know about rendering. Haven't done that yet. Timothy Olson also asked, here he goes, or also says, you can get already done panel sketchbook at Target. Yes, you can get the already done panel sketchbook, but that seriously limits you. It's like using one of these templates right here that I just have on the screen. You can use that, but it's really, now you're working within those parameters. And I like to do stuff that's a little bit more dynamic and open. And here, let me do that. Let me just show this page. And let me pull this one out. And then stop sharing, and then share screen. Share it again. Come on. All right. There we go. Come on. Are you guys experiencing that lag with me? Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of lag on the screen right now. All right. I don't think that it wants to share. I think StreamYard's having a little bit of problem. Oh, here we go. Here, we'll just share this. So this is a page of Voodoo Nation that I'm working on, Voodoo Nations, that is work Travis Gibb and I are working on. And so this is a page, and as you can see, we've got this establishing this black box up the top that's going to have some text in there to kind of some narration. And then I've got establishing the in this panel, the first panel here, establishing kind of the setting and the scenario there. And then we drop the background and we focus just on these two faces. Then we get back into this kind of big panel, establishing more of the environment. And then we get into these where now the last few panels are nothing but just faces and people talking. And it's going to be faces and text. And that's all you're going to see in these panels. And so that is one way to do it, kind of one option for doing that. So you can use that. Helps if I do that. So you can use things like the pre-lined things and stuff. That's a great way to start. It's a great way to practice. But eventually, it's just like those other lettering softwares that you can use. You eventually want to move on past those things and grow. So use that as a point to get in and start to grow, but don't use it as a crutch. Timothy says placement is important for the words. Yes, it is. And that's the other thing a lot of people don't realize when they're doing the art. They don't think about the text. They're hearing the text, they're hearing the dialogue in their head, but they're not thinking the dialogue's got to be on the page somewhere. And you don't want to cut away too much of the picture. So again, that's where like these big open spots in that page I just showed you. Here, let me pop that back up there again. See these big open spots that you see in here are perfect for that kind of text and allowing that to happen. So Cindy says, yep. Timothy says, here's an idea. You can change those templates on Microsoft Paint. You probably could. Now, I don't typically use Microsoft Paint. It's not very powerful. I think that if you wanted to use these templates as a starting point, like that, what Jack has over here, you could probably use those. And then let's get back to that. Let's get back over to that one. You could probably use those and then take those and rearrange them. I use these sometimes when I'm trying to do more classic storytelling. I will go and I will look at something like this to give me an idea about how, especially when I get into the 9 panels, 8 panels and things like that. We actually have a 9-panel page in Voodoo Nations, and we use this very last example down here of the 9 just rectangles, and it works perfectly for the page. And so that is perfectly, it's perfectly fine sometimes to use those. But you could probably even change those panel layouts, and shrink 1 or 2 and kind of come up with some neat ideas and some neat things. Like we did a 4-panel page that I use kind of this cross element here in the middle. I wanted the middle to look like a cross because it was kind of this mocky moment that this Bishop Lucas was kind of almost mimicking or mocking the cross. And so I wanted to set up those 4 panels like that. So that's a couple ways that you can do that. And you know what? We have been at this for 1 hour and 4 minutes, and this show is only 1 hour long. So thank you guys for helping me out with questions and keeping the conversation going and flowing. If you like this kind of like Q&A session, let me know. Please feel free to put in any kind of questions and things that you might want me to tackle on the Comics Nuts and Bolts. This show is for you. It's not for me. It is so that you guys can get to know the process a little bit better, the whole idea of making comics, and to put a little more knowledge and wisdom in your corner so that you don't have to make the same mistakes and pitfalls that many of us did coming up doing this on our own. It is a whole lot easier to swim with a partner out there. So let us help you here at the Comics Nuts and Bolts. and let us use the experience that we have learned, the things that we have learned, to help you get further in the independent comics industry. So I do encourage you to keep checking into the Indie the hashtag INDEEVENT, Indie Vent Weekend. There's more great shows coming up right after this. And there are, we've got a whole day tomorrow and a whole day Sunday, and we've also got some after show stuff going on. So make sure you check out those things. It's going to be a blast. A lot of great content. Some stuff that you're going to want to sit back and watch and listen to. Some stuff to entertain. Some stuff to inform. But it is all good stuff. And so make sure you check out all of those. And while you're at it, swing by Meredith Logren's Facebook page or YouTube and thank her for her work putting this together. Thank Rob Anderson for his work doing this. But yeah, definitely give the kudos to those people who have set this thing up and made this happen. And this shows really the heart of the indie comics industry community, because there are pockets of community there, and it's great to see everyone coming together for something like this to share their wisdom and their knowledge and their experience. So Cindy says it's a good job. Thank you very much, Cindy. You are such an encourager. It's great to have you in my corner. I really appreciate that. So, all right, everyone, that's been. Remove myself from the that's what I meant to do right there. So thank you very much for joining me today. And again, like I said, don't forget to go check out the rest of Indie Vent, as we have a whole lot going on. So I'm just going to throw out some branding, and then we will see you guys next week.